Welcome. We're so glad to have you here tonight. My name is Rick Mullaney. I'm the director of the Public Policy Institute here at Jacksonville University. And welcome to the winter board meeting for the Public Policy Institute Board of Advisors. On behalf of the board, I want to thank you all for being here. Students, faculty, community leaders, and of course, you're going to hear from him in just a little while, but Congressman Lawson. We're very, very pleased to have the Congressman here as our special guest and keynote for tonight. And he'll be introduced by former Congressman Andrew Crenshaw in just a few minutes. The Public Policy Institute, I think as the people in this room know, is 7 years old. And in fact, the first board meeting was 7 years ago this month. And many of the board members who are here tonight are part of the original founding of the board, of the Institute. At the Public Policy Institute, and I think one of the reasons why we were able to have so many outstanding board members, and by the way, I think it's one of the best boards in the state, is simply put, we believe public policy matters. We believe it shapes the future. And in particular, and we have some of our students here tonight, we believe our graduates can create a better future for North Florida, for the state of Florida, and for the country. We are very pleased here at the Institute to offer graduate study in public policy. We offer a master's degree in public policy, an MPP degree. As part of that degree, of course, there's a core curriculum, there's an internship, capstone projects, but there's also some critical MPP core values that we think are critically important that our students graduate with, and I'll talk about that briefly in just a second. We also have 3 dual degree programs. You have the opportunity here at the Institute to not only get your MPP degree, but a second graduate degree at the same time. In particular, because of environmental interests, we've seen a real spike in interest in the dual degree program for MPP in marine science. We are actually one of, I think, 3 schools on the East Coast of the United States that offers an MPP marine science dual degree. We're also seeing an increase in interest, if you're interested in business and finance, an increase in the MPP MBA, the intersection of both business and public policy. And of course, you can do your first year here and then go to any law school in the country and graduate with both degrees in 4 years, something that we're working on. So we sincerely believe that we are educating and preparing a whole new generation of leaders for the public, private, non-public sector here at Jacksonville University. This year, by the way, we have launched one of the first minor in public. We're focusing on undergraduate students. We're offering a minor in public policy, one of the first few schools in the state to offer a minor. And this semester, taught by Elizabeth Fustel, who's done a terrific job as our MPP program manager, she's teaching Introduction to Public Policy for our undergraduate students. Now, I'm a little biased when I say this, but it's my sincere hope here at Jacksonville University that if you're studying nursing, that you get a minor in public policy. If you're studying engineering, that you get a minor in public policy. If you're studying business, that you get a minor in public policy. If you're studying aviation, that you get a minor in public policy. We think it's important to the future of the state and the nation, and we think it goes really well regardless of that discipline. And so we've been very, very pleased to focus on undergraduates. In addition, many of you may have noticed very recently that since 2013, the Institute, quite frankly, has become one of the leading venues here in Jacksonville University, and the Institute has become a leading venue in the state of Florida for public policy education, discussion, and debate. Since 2013, we have hosted over 50 public policy programs here on the Jacksonville University campus. That's lectures, conferences, forums, and 10 of those have been televised debates or forums. And one of those televised debates, somebody who wanted to be a congressman for the 5th Congressional District of Florida, really performed well. And it was, I thought, a major turning point in helping him become elected. When Congressman Lawson was here on the Jacksonville University campus in August of 2016 for that debate. And so we are very, very, and by the way, in 2 weeks, publicly announced it today. We just finalized it. There will be one televised debate in the mayor's race here in Jacksonville. It'll be March 6th here on the Jacksonville University campus at the Terry Concert Hall. If you're interested in attending, come see us. And we have a proud tradition at this board meeting, by the way, of being very fortunate, and we're thankful to the congressman, of having some extraordinary public leaders come to this board meeting. It started off with the governor of Florida, then the attorney general for the state of Florida, the speaker, Senator Bob Graham, gubernatorial candidates, Republican and Democrat, and we've been very fortunate in recent years to have such a terrific showing of so many outstanding policy leaders, and we continue that tradition tonight. So with that, I do want to introduce to you a terrific public servant, and I'm very grateful that he serves on this board, and he's also a fine basketball player too, went to college on one, is former Congressman Andrew Crenshaw. Congressman Crenshaw was born here in Jacksonville. He went to the University of Georgia on a basketball scholarship. He then went to the University of Florida for law school. He was an investment banker before serving in the Florida legislature from 1972 to 1978. He then in later years, 1986 to 1994, served in the Florida Senate and became the first president of the Florida Senate in 118 years when he was elected president of the Senate here in Florida. In 2000, he was elected to Congress of the 4th Congressional District, served from 2001 to 2017, and a particular focus, of course, on military issues, Mayport, and so economic development, jobs, the port, and he is a great example of everything I just talked about. Someone who combines integrity and a strong moral compass with public policy and technical skills. So I'm very pleased to introduce the former congressman who's going to introduce our guest speaker. I'm pleased to introduce the Honorable Andrew Crenshaw.
Well, thank you, Rick. Thanks for those kind words. And today's speaker, Congressman Al Lawson, represents the 5th Congressional District here in Florida. Now, he was born in Midway, Florida, and if you met him before the dinner tonight, you'd probably say he must have played basketball somewhere along the way. And he actually played basketball, having been born in Midway. Some of you that know Gadsden County, that's somewhere between Lipscomb and Gibson. If you don't know Gadsden County, it's a little bit northwest. Where he was born was northwest of Tallahassee. But he played a little high school in Havana, Florida. And then he went on to play at Florida A&M University. He got a degree there in political science, did a little stint in the NBA, played for the Indiana Pacers and also for the Atlanta Hawks. But what you don't know is that back when he was in high school, he played against somebody that you all know and love who's already been introduced tonight, and that's Artis Gilmore. Now, Artis, we thank you for all you did for JU. Thank you for what you've done for our community. And we asked you to come here tonight to be sure if Congressman Lawson started talking about basketball, you know, we could know really what's going on, who beat who scored who blocked whose shots. And actually what I've learned tonight is that they played against each other in high school. Artis went to high school in Chipley, and they had a game over in Havana. And I'm not going to tell you what happened, but if Al does, we'll know the truth because Artis is back there. And so thank you, Artis, for being here tonight. Now, after he played a little basketball in the pros, he came back to Florida State University, was an assistant coach there. In 1982, he decided to get involved in politics, and he ran for the Florida House. And he represented that area until 2000, 18 years. Now, I was president of the Senate back in those days, and I got to know him a little bit, and we worked together on some issues. In those days, Republicans and Democrats got along better than they do sometimes in Washington. And he's been a friend for a long, long time. In 2000, he left the House and went to the Florida Senate, spent 10 years there, and when he left, he was the Democratic leader of the Florida Senate. He was also known as the Dean of the Florida Senate. Maybe he can explain what that means. Probably means he was there a long time, I don't know. But now he's in the United States Congress. In 2016, he was elected to the 5th Congressional District, and they changed that district in 2016. There was a lawsuit, and now that district, some of you may not be aware of the fact that he represents part of Jacksonville and part of Tallahassee. In fact, if you look at the facts, 63% of the population in the 5th Congressional District are from over here in Jacksonville, and only 31% of the people are from over in Tallahassee. But he has been elected. He has represented us well. He was reelected in 2018 and has done a great job. He serves on the Financial Services Committee. That's great for Jacksonville because of all the banks and insurance companies that we have here. He's also on the Agricultural Committee, and that's an area that between here and Tallahassee that really has a lot of agricultural interests, and he does a great job there. So let's give him a great big JU welcome, Congressman Al Lawson.
Thank you, Andy, for that great introduction. It's a real privilege for me to be here, and I was telling Rick as I was in Jacksonville one night, and I was having dinner and found out that the president was there. And I told the president, I went up to meet the president, and I said, look, what is Rick Mullaney doing? I said, because he had a forum when I was running for office the first time, and it was the best forum I'd ever been to. You know, and I said, it was really professional, and I said, boy, I tried to get him to have another forum, but the governor and all of them beat me out, you know, so I'll let it go. I have a couple other staff people here before I introduce them. We met Cardinal before, but Rudy Malloy. Rudy is my field director. I really met Rudy during my coaching days at FSU when he was a freshman, you know, and I can't get rid of him, Rick. So, you know, so it's there. Christian is a wounded warrior. Christian stand up. And Christian, believe it or not, just happened to be in the office. And Christian, beautiful wife, you know, and Christian, we just happen to be from the same county. You know, I don't know how I found him, but you know, he's when he told me from Gaston County, I said he was from God country, so you know, it was good for him. And then Sherry retired from the military, but boy, she is good. And reckon with veterans. And a good friend of mine, he's an attorney, and I brought him up to D.C. From here, and that's Attorney Robert Peters. Robert. Yeah. And then a young man that I served with in the Senate, spent a lot of time with, and he's like my field director. And he said, I'm always telling these stories and all these other things, and he said, I got to go home. But that's Senator Tony Hill. Tony? Yeah. Now, when I found out that Andy was going to introduce me, I was really excited because when I was in the House and he was in the Senate, I was always trying to get some appropriation, you know, when you could go in there. And so he was very good to us. And I can tell you that probably after Andy left, the greatest friend that I had in this area was Jim King. The late Jim King. We did a lot of work together and did a lot of things. And I probably was the only Democrat that Jim had chairing committees in the Senate. You know, and the same thing really happened with Dan Webster in the House. And so they wasn't sure what I was, you know, whether I was Democrat or Republican, you know. But I want to say something about artists. You know, artists and I played ball against each other in high school, and we became friends. I blocked his shot a couple times, and but he survived, you know, and so So when Artis went off to college, you know, I kept following Artis all while he was in school, and I knew that Artis was destined for great things. And I can remember when I was trying to shop for clothes, Artis told me when he was at JU that you can come down here and get some clothes at a store called Lebo's. I'll never forget Lebo's because Lebo's could fit me. And I would tell you this because when you grew up in the country and farming and stuff, your mother go out and buy your clothes. I didn't go to town that much. And normally she had a problem fitting the pants, and the pants was always above my ankles. And so when I would go to school, there was a store in Quincy called Jerry Thrill, which said, come in and see what $1 would buy. And so I would go on campus, and I had to wear those clothes. I couldn't tell Mama I couldn't wear the clothes. And the kids would say, oh, I know where he's shopping. He's shopping at Jerry Thrill. They had another sign, wash them and wear them for shorts. You know, and so, but anyway, I came over, Madam President, to Artis's last game at JU on campus here, stayed in his room, and I said, Artis, I said, boy, I said, one of the things that you could do if you get a chance, and it's kind of hard to do because they didn't like dunking the basketball when we was coming along. I said, if you ever got the chance, if you dunk that basketball, it'll be a technical foul, but you will bring the house down. It was 1 minute and 53 seconds left on the clock. And some kind of way, the thing broke loose, and Artis got the ball, and he dunked the basketball, and everybody in the arena just went wild. They called it a technical foul, but nobody cared about it. Nobody cared about it. So when Artis signed his big contract, Artis came to Tallahassee with his purple on purple Eldorado. And had on a purple shirt, purple Eldorado, lavender top. And I was wondering, how did Artis able to get that? But it was kind of special made for him. And Artis came by. My son had just been born. And I still have pictures today. I haven't given the Artis yet, with Artis sitting down with a bottle feeding my son, you know. And so we was friends. And that's one of the things that is what it's not like up in Congress. Even though we played against each other, when the game is over, you know, when the game is over, you know, it's good if you can get along and be friends. So I'm happy to be here, Madam President, at JU. Tonight I have a great appreciation for JU because when I started coaching at Florida State, there still was a rivalry with JU. So Artis and Pembroke Burroughs and Harold Fox and all those guys, Bimbo was great athletes. They put JU on the map. So a year later, after UCLA beat them, we went to play UCLA in the finals. We was up on UCLA by 7 points with 3 minutes and 50 seconds left on the clock. And John Wooden didn't say anything to the official, he just stood up. And all of a sudden, the complexity of the game started changing. And UCLA ended up beating us. And John Wooden said, don't send in more teams from Florida. 2 years in a row, I got to go against these Florida teams. And so that's what happened. My career in pro was cut real short. I got hurt at Indiana and then went to San Diego. I got in San Diego, Artis, and I thought I had everything made, was in the ABA, and they hired Whip Chamberlain. Yeah. Whip Chamberlain only came in on Fridays, flew in from Bel Air to practice. And I remember being called in, and Whip Chamberlain said that he was going to cut some of us. He cut 7 of us, you know, and they say that they were going to send me down to Mexico. By that time, they didn't have any walls. I could just, I was staying in Chula Vista, you know, and it was about 10 miles from Tijuana, but there were no walls. And so as a result, I came back, and I was fortunate to coach at Florida State for the next 8 years, 6 years, and still the rivalries continued with JU. And I want you to know, Madam President, that everybody across this country, because what developed here, knew about Jacksonville University. Every place, every corner that you could go, they knew about Jacksonville University. They knew about Jacksonville University more so than they knew about Florida State or the University of Florida. So I got in graduate school at FSU, and I was listening to what Rick was talking about, and I was in public administration. And so as a result, when I see the students here, I can tell you this is one of the greatest opportunities that you could have in public policy, because we need more of our young people to get involved in public policy. You know, one day, a funeral director up in the hills of Kentucky found out that there was a homeless guy that has passed away that didn't have any family. And he decided that what he would do is that he would bury this homeless guy because he knew no one. He saw a guy out there one day in the parade playing his bagpipes. And he said, you know, I'm going to ask this guy who's playing his bagpipes that if he would come and play something for this homeless guy, he has no family. So he gave the guy the direction, and the guy said, yeah, I'll do it. So the day of the funeral, like most men, you know, he did not ask for direction. So he drove around and around until he saw 2 or 3 men sitting on a stack of sand that they had been digging a hole, and he thought, well, this is where they're going to bury this guy. They were having lunch on a lunch break. He got out of the car and took his bagpipes out of the car and walked over to the hole in the ground, and he played an Amazing Grace like he had never played before. And so he played it so well until the 3 guys that was working there just started crying. They put down their lunch and started crying. So when he walked away and was getting ready to put his bagpipes in the back seat, he said, you know, I didn't know this guy, but I did the very best job that I could to really put him away right. So one of the guys sitting on the pile of dirt said, you know, I've never witnessed anything like this before, and I've been doing septic tanks for at least 20 years. So he went, so he went the wrong, he went the wrong place. Yeah. Yeah. Many of you all are wondering, especially some of the students, say, what it's like, you know, serving in Congress. You know, said, and I can tell you that Republicans and Democrats actually get along. When I first got to Congress, I spent a lot of time with some of my Republican friends because I knew them from serving in the Florida legislature. So I had people like Dan Webster and Posey, you know, and Mario Diaz-Balart, and Ileana Ross-Layton, and so forth, who were trying to help me get adjusted. So I spent time talking to them, and I wasn't talking to many Democrats because I knew them. I mean, we've spent a lot of years together. So I was asked one day by the leader, she said, Lawson? I said, yes, ma'am. She said, could I see your voter registration card? I said, why you want to see my card? She said, I'm not sure what you are. But getting back to what I wanted to talk to you about today, there's a lot of changes that are going on in Washington. To the public policy students, I would say to you that it's good that you learn what public policy is all about. You know, how important that this education is going to be for you when you leave this institution. If you don't get involved in America with the things that are happening now, is you're going to be left behind. I can tell you when I look at the president over there, she is happy with all of the students that succeeded. The students that went on to be great citizens in this community, and students who make a major contribution to our society. There's a big change that took place in Washington after the election. Washington is more diverse. It is more females that are serving in Washington. And I can tell you that it's an array of females, and many of them are real different. They want action right now. In my 30 years of being in politics, and to see a community that had high aspiration of doing good, to building financial institutions, to hiring more people, and you start to wonder what it is that we need to do. Well, you need to reinvest in our community. You need to make sure that we, especially politicians that go to represent you in Washington, that we do the things that we said that we are supposed to do. That we really represent you, and we really do not represent ourselves. And I tell people when I'm running for office, if I don't do what I tell you I'm going to do, then you can throw me out of office. Because that's all I am working for you, politicians are working for you. And that's what it's all about. There are people, in my opinion, Annie, that has been in Washington too long. And because they've been in Washington too long, they have a tendency to want things to be the way they were 20, 30 years ago. We have just come through a shutdown in government that took place over 35 days. And it all was because people were not able to come together and negotiate protecting our borders. Everyone wants to protect our borders, but there was a difference in opinion. But in the difference of opinion, it was not until there was an outcry with federal workers and so forth that they said, we need to get some people to the table. And they came to the table to work and see what can we do not to let government shut down again, and where people will have the opportunity to have a paycheck. I worked with Congressman Rutherford and Don on making sure that we work with financial institutions to let people be late on their loans, you know, to work with them so that people, the mortgage company they won't lose their car and transportation and so forth, that they're going to get paid, to ensure those institutions that we got a problem here. We work to make sure that people will get food. I remember in Baltimore, going into Baltimore to catch a flight out, and the TSA representative, I gave him the card which said, "You're Congress." They asked for ID, and this guy just kept looking at it. I went in there and pulled this card out here, the one that we vote with, but they let him know that you're Congress. He kept looking at it and looking at it, and he said, "I want to ask you a question." He said, "Are you a member of Congress?" And I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "I don't think I'm going to let you on this plane." He said, "You need to go back in D.C. You need to go back to D.C. and make sure that we get things done." You see, ladies and gentlemen, I came through the legislature where Democrats and Republicans was able for 60 days to work out problems and solve issues and pass a balanced budget. That does not really happen at the federal level. Everybody say when they're running for office that we're going to balance the budget and so forth, and I tell you, we have increased the budget by $1 or $2 trillion already since I've been up there the last 2 years. It doesn't happen that way. In the history books, they talk about it that way, but it really doesn't happen that way. You will not want to think about the 35 days that the government was closed down. And ladies in lines told me, "I'm going to have to start bringing my daughter to work next week because I don't have the money for daycare." All because of us. Really can't get along and happen. Now, from a Democratic standpoint, you know, we really didn't want any walls or barriers, so they say. But when I was driving down I-10 today, I saw a lot of walls on the interstate. And those walls were keeping people out, animals out, and everything else coming down the interstate. On both sides, you see all these fences, all the way down. So you can't tell me. I told him if I could get into the White House with the president for a night, I could work out this situation, you know. But there are borders every place, everywhere you go. And so the issue is, how do you work through it? Because you say you want to protect Americans, you know, and we don't have so many people that are coming to this country. How do you work through it? How do you come together as leaders and make sure that things happen? I believe that American workers should never be used in order for us to make a deal. I hope that this never happens. Not only do I feel that way, my Republican colleagues outside of leadership feel the same way. But because those workers are your sisters, your brothers, your relatives in different places. There was over 13,000 people that was affected here in the state of Florida. You know, it's one thing, an artist would tell you that athletics teach you one is to be competitive. The other thing it teaches you is to work hard. And it teaches you to respect each other. Now, a lot of my opponents might not respect me, but because we are real competitive. But I can tell you in athletics, you have to leave that on the field. And even when the negotiation takes place in Washington, you have to pretty much lead it on the field. Now, I'm going to tell you something. One day, the basketball coach and the football coach was debating who had the dumbest athlete. So after a considerable amount of debating, they decided to call the players down to their office. And so the football coach said to his player, he said, "Look, John, you know," he said, "I want you to go down to my office and see if I'm there." He said, "Okay, coach." And he left out, you know. Yeah. The big tall basketball player like Odyssey and I came in, hit his head on the door when he came in. And the coach said, "Look, Joe, I want you to go downtown. Here is 50 cents. I want you to go downtown and buy me a new car. He said, okay, coach, I will. So later on, the two athletes met in the elevator. And the big, tall basketball player was shaking his head, you know, up around the numbers in the elevator. And the big football player was just leaning up against the ball, and they were trying to find out what happened. So eventually, eyes met each other. And the basketball player told him, said, you know what? I got the story a little bit money. He told the basketball player, said, I want you to go down to my office and see if I'm there. And he said, okay. So when the basketball player told him, he said, what happened? He said, I don't know what's going on with my coach right now. So he told me to go down to the office and see if he was there. And if he had wanted to know that bad, he could have picked up the phone and called. And the football player said, you know, I think coach been hit too many times. So he gave me the money to go downtown and buy him a new car, but he didn't tell me what color he wanted. 800,000 federal workers was affected with the close down, 800,000. Those 800,000, a lot of them came up about a week ago, and I had the opportunity to speak to them. The reason why they asked me to come and speak to them in D.C. is because I'm one of the ones who said that I would never take another paycheck until they are paid. And I figure that Congress need to suffer and members need to suffer just like the workers. So I got in contact with Human Resources and so forth and told them I wanted them to stop my paycheck. Some members didn't like it, but it was the right thing to do. We should suffer just like them. And so when we did say we're going to open the government back up again, I made sure I tell the worker, I said, I'm going to be glad to get my paycheck too, you know, because it means a whole lot to the family. Washington is a very difficult place. I remember one day coming down on the elevator, I lived down at Navy Yard, and this lady had a lot of dogs. You know, dogs all over the place up there. You know, if you don't like dogs, you don't need to be in D.C. And so I asked her, I said, why so many people have dogs up here? She said, where you from? I said, I'm from Florida. She said, you're in Congress? I said, yes, ma'am, I am. She said, you're going to learn pretty soon. The only friend you got up here is a dog. I said, okay. I said, okay, thank you very much, you know. But there's a lot of fear that go on with members. And Eleanor Roosevelt explained it correctly. She said, fear is spelled false evidence appearing real. And a lot of that happened in Washington because you want to know what is happening and whether something's going to happen to you. But when you've served as long as I have served, you know, in politics, you know, you have a tendency not to worry about that. You just go and try to get the job done. You know, we was fortunate, both Rutherford and I, to bring over $100 million into the Jacksonville area for money for dredging. They're going to bring in 15,000 jobs. Just a week ago, there'll be help with the Bill grant, which is bringing another $25 million, which is going to revolutionize transportation and stuff in the downtown area, which is going to be very, very good. I have been fortunate to be able to work with my colleagues. You see, I'm the only Democrat from Pensacola to Orlando, but I don't feel like the Lone Ranger because I know these guys, and I worked with them for a long time. Yesterday, I was at Tyndall Air Force Base, and it was so much damage as we were going on a tour. When I left Tyndall Air Force Base, I went through Mexico Beach. Same thing, just about wiped out. Got in last night, and people need help. And when they need help, it's not like they want to be getting assistance from the government, but the only thing that can help bail them out is the government. They don't want to be on government assistance always. They just need the help to get back on their feet. There are people from Jacksonville and other places that went over to help feed people. you know, all over the place because people are great to actually work with. And I can tell you that one of the biggest issues that we have now is how do we have affordable health care? As a Democrat, when I told them that there's a problem with the Affordable Care Act, it was not that we didn't need to help people with pre-existing conditions and so forth, but it was causing a problem on small businesses. So they said, who is this guy going to tell us there's something wrong with it? You know, this is one of our marquee programs. It's not so much that it was a marquee program, it is that there were some fixes that need to be made. And that's what I thought I'd come there. Now, they talk about everything, but you need to know that I've been in the insurance and financial industry for 36 years, especially in insurance. In fact, I used to say a prayer every morning when I got up to go to work. And I said, Lord, I give you all the credit, and I take all the commission. Yeah. And so I was glad to really be a part of the institutions that mean so much to the livelihood of people. I got in a little bit of trouble. I was telling some bankers with Dodd-Frank when I was up there, because the Dodd-Frank that they passed in Congress were putting small commercial banks out of business. Credit unions, putting them out of business unless we do something to do something about the regulations. And so as a result, we passed something. It did not sit with everyone, but the financial institutions felt real good about what we were doing. We know that people need affordable wages. Wages have not been growing. We passed a tax package that basically stimulated the financial institution. And the financial institution promised us that they were going to put resources, more resources, into the economy, hire more people, and give them more wages. The biggest challenge that we're going to have in the next 12 months is how do you do more for the middle class? The middle class is the backbone of America. How do we give them more resources? You know, how do we increase and make them more stable? How do we make sure that their kids don't have all these tremendous student loans to be able to become productive? You know, after the romance is over and both of y'all got student loans, you know, you have to start liking each other. Yeah, if you're going to stay together because of the student loan. And all of us have problems with those student loans. Some of the policy issues that affect Florida, there are several issues that I plan to address in Congress. The first bill I introduced in Congress was the Veteran Job Opportunity Act, which gives boosts to veterans so they can invest in our communities through entrepreneurship. So entrepreneurship becomes very important. This would provide new businesses that go into business with tax credits and startup capital so that they can, having a place to go, they can go into business. So I'm creating opportunity for our veterans. You know, one of the things I said a year ago that caused a lot of people to get, I said, we need a veteran hospital here. Some people probably got upset, but when you have the largest community of veterans in the state of Florida, they don't need to go to Gainesville. See, my father was a disabled veteran. And I can't tell you how many times that I drove to Lake City and to Gainesville, taking my father, you know, and waiting all day and sometime into the night and sometime having to spend the night before he could get treated. When you have the largest amount of veterans here in Jacksonville, it is time for America and time for us to go to give to the people who have given so much on the front end. On the back end of their career, we need to make sure that we take care of them. Now, every politician tell you when they're running, we're going to look out for you. We're going to look out for you. And I told them that it has to be something that they can put their hands on and say that, this is really going to help us. When veterans call my office, I tell my staff, if you want to get fired, don't help them. Stay with them until you've been able to do everything that you possibly can, to make sure we try to solve their problem until you get to the point where you cannot solve it. But the most important thing coming up here now is disaster relief. We passed a $12.1 billion disaster relief package, but as always, it's hung up in the Senate, and you know a lot about it, and I can tell you is that hopefully the Senate is going to move on it, because not only it affects us here in North Florida, but it also affects the wildfires out in California. Everybody needs some help. And so I would say that one of the reasons why not only did I like serving on financial service, but on agriculture committee. Now, it's important to me. There are schools in my district where 100% of the students are on free and reduced lunch, 100%. And in many places, they have to put food in the backpacks of students on Friday so that they'll be able to get a meal during the weekend. So nutrition is very, very important to me. When we had the storm here, all the flooding, I went to the Governor Scott at the time, and told Governor Scott, for those people who are on SNAP benefits, allow them on their benefit without being penalized, is to go where they can get a hot meal. Whether it's McDonald's, I don't care where it is, because they couldn't cook, so that they could get a hot meal to be able to take care of their family, which he granted. So as a result, it's extremely important. My goal is, I tell Robert and them, is let's feed America. We are the richest country in the world. Mexico, Canada, and a lot of people, China is dumping on the United States. And we need to cut that out. We need to stand strong against it because it affects our farmers and everyone else. So if you're wondering, what did you do with the funding of the wall? Well, the president blinked, and the group was able to come up with $1.375 billion for border security. There are a lot of new techniques and stuff are going up there now, and technology-wise, that you can use in order to keep people out of this country. We can't afford anymore to let mothers be separated from their kids. But the problem is, Congress has never passed a comprehensive immigration policy. And in the next 8 or 9 months, we have to pass a comprehensive immigration policy that is good for us and give people a pathway towards citizenship. And I'm going to stand very firm to make sure that we do that. So if you want to say, well, how things are going, I never realized when I got to Congress that the way you get these committee assignments is how much money you raise and how much money you give to your individual parties. So when I came out the first time, they say, they didn't tell me, but I said, I have no money to give you because my campaign is in debt and I have to pay off that debt. I borrowed $100,000 during my first campaign, $100,000. And so as a result is some people who didn't have opposition that raised a couple million, they can come in and give that money. And you'll see those people on appropriation, Ways and Means, and all those other areas. So I say, just put me somewhere, I'll work my way up. I said, I worked in those tobacco fields in Gaston County, and I know how to work, and I know what work means. You see, ladies and gentlemen, 90 members in Congress sleep in their office every night. And when they get up in the morning, they go to the gym to take a shower. As big as I am, I said, I can't sleep on that sofa. My feet hang too far off. They haven't been in raises for members, no cost of living increases. And every week, I'm struggling about what plane and what seat I'm going to be in. So they don't want you to fly first class. Now they call it, Robert, the Lawson rule. Because I went to them and I said, look, I want to get a better seat. You know, I got hip problems, knee problems, and I want to get a better seat. And so as a result, when you talk to some of those members, they said, especially young members, they said, I got a mortgage back home, I have kids in school, and I cannot afford to pay what it takes for an apartment up here, so I just sleep in the office. Now that shouldn't happen in America, in Congress. You know, it should be affordable so anyone can serve. And the new young lady from Alexander from New York, real popular, told them that she wasn't coming until she got her first paycheck. So she couldn't afford it, you know. And there are several other members who said similar things. And so what it does, it's a changing environment in government about people like you and I who are not wealthy are some of the people that are coming to Congress now. So when they come to Congress, they want to make sure that, you know, that they can make it and do what they're supposed to do. You know, you don't have people writing about that. You know, they're not going to write about what actually happened. You know, I'm on the Financial Service Committee, Agriculture Committee, and I'm on 6, which the staff don't like it, subcommittees. And the only reason why I'm on the 6 committee, not that I wanted them, they told me you need to get on and we need some help on those committees. So I said, okay. So you're probably going to look at, one of the things that's going to come up is going to be raising the minimum wage. That will come up this year because it needs to be good for workers. How do you reduce drug costs? Why is it cheaper in Canada than it is in the U.S.? How can we make drug costs more affordable? How can we make sure that not only that we reduce that, but how we have more people get access to health care? How are you going to do it? How can we work together, regardless of your party affiliation, to make sure that we do these particular things? And that's what you're going to see. You know, bipartisanship didn't really exist when I first came in. But because you start to work with people and say, why shouldn't we work together? It's for the benefit of America, benefit of the people. So I guess in the 20 years that I've spent in the Florida legislature and working on both sides of the aisle, it's the same thing that I wanted to do, you know, when I got to Congress. If you ask me was it difficult, yes, it was difficult. Have I been able to do it? Yes, I've been able to do it. What are you going to do when people tell you that you can't? And like Eleanor Roosevelt said, you want to work with them. It's too bad today that too many people think of work as being a dirty word. But there's only one way to get to the top, and it's spelled W-R-K. I know what it's like to work 12, 13 hours a day. And a lot of people don't want to do that. They want the easy and the flexible life. You know, I like to think of all of you in here tonight. When I see the president here, former president, I like to think of you as winners, and I like to think of you as being on the mountaintop. There's too many people who don't want to get involved. They don't want to get involved in politics. They want to stay away from politics. Everybody got a notion of what they're going to do. So remind me of a story where a little boy was out playing and he stumbled up on an eagle's egg. He took the egg and put it in a chicken nest. The egg hatched. And the eagle grew up with his chicken friends. He learned to stretch for his food with his, like a chicken, And he learned to fly for short distance with fluttering wings. And one day while out playing with his chicken friends, he looked up in the sky. And there soaring among the mountain was a golden eagle. He asked his friend, so what kind of bird is that? What kind of bird is that? And his chicken friends told him, say, yo, that's the golden eagle, the greatest bird of them all. But you could never be like that. And the eagle grew old and he died, thinking he was a chicken. But I have news for you all who are assembled here tonight, who are pushing this Public Policy Institute, and the students who are getting involved, that the good Lord made all of you like an eagle, and let's fly like an eagle. And I know that you can fly like an eagle, and I know that it's never too late to do something. William Henley, as he struggled for his life in Innisbrook in his late 70s, wrote his greatest work. And he said, out of the night that covered me, black as a pit from pole to pole, I think whatever gods may be for my uncomfortable soul. In the fell clutch of circumstances, I have not winced, not cried aloud. Under the bludgeon of chance, my head is bloody but unbowed. Beyond this place, a raft in tears looms, but the horror of the shade. And yet the minutes of the year find and shall find me unafraid. It matters not how straight the gates are charged with punishment to stroll. You are the master of your faith, and you're the captain of your soul. Thank you very much.